As you find yourself overthinking every decision, second guessing yourself, or constantly wondering whether you're making the right choice, you're in good company and there is nothing wrong with you. Decision making can be difficult, especially in midlife, as careers, relationships, family responsibilities, and life changes all demand your energy and consideration. If you find it challenging to make the right choice, then the real problem may not be that you are bad at making decisions. It may simply be that you are asking the wrong question. One simple shift in the question you ask can cut through the mental noise, help you stop overthinking, and enable you to make decisions that feel calmer, clearer, and more aligned with who you truly are. Kia ora and hello. Welcome to the Living Midlife Well podcast. I'm Janine, Lattimore, a well-being coach, here to help people in midlife get off the treadmill of stress and exhaustion, rediscover their joy, and create a life that is aligned with who they really are and what they really want. Today, we're talking about something that affects every single one of us, but especially those of us in midlife: making decisions. Some decisions are small and simple. Others have the potential to change the direction of our lives. Whether it's deciding about a career change, a relationship, setting boundaries with family, looking after our health, or simply deciding how we want to spend our time, making decisions can sometimes feel exhausting. So let's explore why that is. Making decisions can be hard, especially in our 40s and 50s. We experience having to make choices and decisions throughout our lives, but midlife can be a significant crossroads for many people. We can be faced with some big questions and choices about our career, our relationships, our children, our finances, and our future. In addition to that, many of us in midlife are feeling a shift or loss in our identity. Children leaving home, career changes, menopause, divorce, or aging can all prompt the question, who am I now? And without a clear sense of self, decisions can feel even harder. After years of caring for children, partners, or aging parents, and or giving a large part of yourself to your work, you may have become disconnected from your own desires and don't even know what you want anymore. On top of that, most people don't just want to make good decisions, they want to make the right decision. We can feel even more pressure to do this in midlife when we have children relying on us, bills to pay, and the weight of past mistakes sitting on our shoulders. As a result, we go into a mental battleground of conditioned beliefs, trying to identify the right and perfect answer. We ask ourselves, what should I do? What would other people do? What are the pros and cons? What if I make the wrong choice? What if I fail? What if I disappoint someone? What if people judge me? What if I miss out on something? Does any of that sound familiar? Now, I confess, I like to get things right, do things right, and have things done right. I have perfectionist tendencies and often like to control how things are done so that they are done well. On the flip side of that, I grew up very sensitive to doing the wrong thing or getting things wrong. Having a very critical father probably helped instill that fear in me, but there are personality and neurotype traits that feed into all this as well. In many ways, these are helpful patterns of behavior. I can be relied on to do a good job, I am conscientious, and I complete things to a high standard. But then there is the downside, the almost constant underlying anxiety, regularly pushing myself to the point of burnout, finding it hard to settle if things are messy, undone, or out of place. Yes, I am a recovering control freak. And because of that, I understand the need to get things right and the fear of making the wrong choice or decision. One of the pieces of life wisdom that I learned in my 40s was that rightness is subjective. It is a constantly moving target. When you aim to get everything right, the only thing you are guaranteed to get is stressed. Life is messy. It is unstructured. It isn't black and white. There is very little, if anything, in life that is absolutely right or wrong. Even the laws of the land sometimes need to bend to particular circumstances. Which brings us to the question most of us ask whenever we're faced with a decision: what is the right thing to do? We may frame that in different ways, like, what is the responsible thing to do? What is the best thing to do? What should I do? But underneath, they're all asking the same thing. And if you're anything like me, that question leads to a back and forth mental debate that can be completely exhausting as we wrestle with trying to work out the right choice. Now, there are two reasons trying to make the right decision is so hard, and that's what I'd like to explore next. The first is quite simple. As I mentioned earlier, the goalpost of what is right isn't fixed. It moves with different people, different situations, and different perspectives. There is no one objectively right decision, ever. So if you're trying to find the one perfect answer, you'll often find yourself going round and round in circles. You toss ideas around in your head, you argue with yourself, you look at every angle, then you look at every angle again. It's exhausting because you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't actually have one universally correct answer. But there's a second reason making decisions can feel so difficult. And I think this one is even more important. What your head thinks is right and what your heart thinks is right are often two different things. That's usually why you feel resistance to a particular thought or decision. Your heart is connecting to something different. Now, when I say your head and your heart, I'm not suggesting they're in conflict with one another. In fact, I think they're on the same team. They simply have different strategies. Your head operates in terms of logic, rationality, and patterns. It wants to follow established pathways. It wants to make sense of things. It wants to do what is logically right and fit within the systems we've learned to live by. Your heart is different. I believe it is connected to your soul and to the wisdom and intelligence of your body. It doesn't present you with pages of analysis. Instead, it usually offers one simple knowing, one quiet truth. I sometimes picture it like this. Your heart sits quietly in the center, connected to both the earth beneath you and something greater above you, gently speaking one clear message. Meanwhile, your head runs around your heart like an energetic dog, stopping to sniff every possibility, trying to work everything out, and trying to keep everybody happy. It's quite a funny image, but for me, it captures exactly what overthinking feels like. Your heart knows that obligation and shoulds are not your truth. It holds your truth. Now, before we go any further, I want to be really clear about something. This doesn't mean that there is no place for logical and rational thinking. Of course, there is. Logic is incredibly valuable. Reason is important. Planning is important. What I'm suggesting is something slightly different. Rather than starting with logic, start with truth. Instead of beginning with what is the right thing to do, begin with what is true for me. Once you know that, your logical mind becomes a wonderful tool for helping you work out how to make it happen. So let me share one simple practice that has transformed decision making for me. When I do this, I find that it cuts through all the overthinking and noise around making a choice or decision, and my path forward becomes clear. It is not always the easiest path, which is why our brain sometimes runs in overthinking circles to avoid it. However, it is the path that is most aligned with our highest self, rather than what other people are directing us to. Here is the practice, the one question that can make every choice easier. Whenever I find myself caught in overthinking, whenever I notice myself asking, what is the right thing to do? I stop. I take a breath and I replace that question with another one. What would I do if I truly loved myself? That's it. One question. And every time I ask it, something shifts. It cuts through the overthinking. It quiets the mental noise. It helps my path forward become much clearer. Your heart knows the answer to that question, not your head. So the next time you're faced with a difficult choice, try letting your inner awareness drop down out of your head, down into your heart, and ask the question from there. What would I do if I truly loved myself? The answer that comes may feel emotional. It may feel uncomfortable. It may not make logical sense at first, but deep down, you'll recognize it as your truth. Once you've found that truth, then invite your rational mind back into the conversation. Let it help you work out the practical steps. Let it solve problems. Let it make a plan, but let it serve your truth rather than define it. Because here's what I've discovered: living entirely from your head, overthinking every decision, constantly trying to do what is right, uses an enormous amount of energy. It drains you mentally, it drains you physically, and I believe it also drains your life force because you're no longer connected with your authentic self. Sometimes the answer that comes from your heart may even seem selfish to your rational mind, but I've found that you'll never feel fully settled or experience genuine inner peace unless you're willing to honor what your heart knows when it is centered in love. And that's an important distinction. This isn't about simply doing whatever you feel like in the moment. Our wants can sometimes be driven by emotion. That's why I use this particular question rather than simply saying, follow your heart. Asking, what would I do if I truly loved myself, guides you towards love, towards wisdom, towards your highest self. And from an energetic perspective, love is one of the highest frequencies we can experience. Making a decision from self love doesn't mean just doing whatever you want or ignoring other people. It means choosing from a place of self respect, honesty, and compassion. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, Janine, this is starting to sound a little bit woo woo. And if that's you, stay with me because there is actually some fascinating science behind why beginning with the heart may make far more sense than most of us have been taught. Most of us have grown up believing that we only have one brain, the one in our head. But biologically, that's not actually the whole story. Our heart is also a neural center, a brain. In fact, we have three major neural centers in our body: the head brain, also called the cranial or cephalic brain, the heart brain, also known as the cardiac brain, and the gut brain, also known as the enteric brain. Each of these neural centers is capable of processing information, remembering, and influencing our decisions, and they are constantly communicating with one another through the vagus nerve and through biochemical signals. For hundreds of years, particularly since the scientific revolution in the 17th century, we've been taught that logic and rational thinking are the only true sources of knowledge, the only knowledge that could be scientifically proven. But that understanding is changing. Researchers such as Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and organizations like the HeartMath Institute have helped bring attention to the remarkable relationship between the heart, the brain, and the body. Alongside this, discoveries in neuroscience and other areas of science continue to deepen our understanding of human intelligence and awareness. In many ways, modern research is beginning to validate something that people have intuitively experienced for thousands of years: that wisdom is not confined to the head. The heart also has a powerful influence on the brain. In fact, the heart generates the strongest rhythmic electromagnetic field in the human body. It sends more signals to the cranial brain than it receives back. The electrical component of the heart signal is around 60 times greater than the brain's. Its magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger and extends several feet beyond the body. By comparison, the magnetic field generated by the head brain extends only a few centimeters beyond the scalp. Perhaps that's one reason why we can often sense another person's emotional state when we walk into a room, even though we can't read their thoughts. Another fascinating discovery is something called heart-brain coherence. When we experience emotions such as love, gratitude, or compassion, the rhythm of the heart becomes smooth and harmonious. That harmonious rhythm helps synchronize activity in the brain. As a result, people often experience greater mental clarity, better emotional regulation, and increased resilience. So, from a biological and an energetic perspective, beginning with a state of love before making a decision makes a lot of sense. Which brings us back to the simple question we've been exploring throughout this episode. Instead of asking, what is the right thing to do? Try asking, what would I do if I truly loved myself? It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. It moves you from making externally driven decisions to internally aligned decisions. Trying to identify the one perfect choice often creates mental, emotional, and physical stress. It drains your energy. And even when you finally decide, you can still be left with a quiet sense of unease because the decision isn't aligned with who you really are. Making decisions from a place of self love and self honoring connects you with your highest self. It becomes much easier to see the path that is true for you. It cuts through the noise of everyone else's opinions, expectations, and desires. So the next time you find yourself trapped in endless overthinking, remember this. Your goal is not to discover the one perfect decision. There probably isn't one. Your goal is to make a decision that is true to you. When you stop asking what is the right thing to do and begin asking, what would I do if I truly loved myself? You shift from living by obligation, fear, and other people's expectations to living from self respect, inner peace, and authenticity. Your rational mind still has an important role to play, but it works best when it is supporting your deepest values rather than trying to define them. That simple shift won't remove every difficult decision from your life, but it can make decision making feel lighter, clearer, and far less exhausting. Before we finish, it's time for this week's Just One Thing. This week's Just One Thing action step is simply to try this out with one small decision today. Start with something simple and see how it works for you. It might be deciding whether or not to have that bag of chips for an afternoon snack, choosing what to wear today, deciding whether to stay at home or go to your exercise class. These are exactly the kinds of everyday decisions where we often get caught in shoulds or find ourselves going backwards and forwards between what we want and what we think would be the right thing to do. Instead, pause for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, what would I do if I truly loved myself? I genuinely love to hear what happens when you try it. So if you'd like to share your experience, please leave me a comment. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you found this interesting or helpful, then please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment or review. This supports me and also helps other people find this information and benefit from it. Until next time, keep living midlife well. Aroha nui, much love. I'm Janine, and I look forward to connecting again on the next episode. Bye for now.